Anti-Sonic.dll. The following text is a transcript and summary of a downloadable audio file found on a website that was said to be available to the public for the course of 3 days, before being taken down by an unknown cause. Any trace of the site has been removed entirely. This has naturally led to extreme doubt and near constant dismissal at first that the site simply never existed. However, upon hearing the file's contents, the possibility of a missing person was raised, as well as certain other curiosities. The file is an MP3 that contains an audio recording featuring almost 26 minutes of narration by an individual apparently named Chris Lawrence. Hold on a second. Let me make sure somebody in particular knows I'm streaming right now. I promised her I would tell her. Anyway. Chris Lawrence. The very nature of what he speaks of throughout the recording seems extremely detached from reality, as if he is experiencing intense hallucinations. The topics mentioned are regarding Sonic.exe, including a detailed description about how it inflicts damage or some kind of influence on certain individuals' minds. Yet with the exception of one particular section regarding a statement about the deaths of several people, the narrator seems almost completely calm and collected. There are no signs of a psychotic breakdown or any kind of high stress levels in his voice. The exception mentioned involves the narrator becoming angry on the subject of fan-made creations being both responsible for people's deaths as well as falling victims themselves. Throughout the recording, it can be heard several ambient noises of a disturbing nature, suspected of being placed in order to mask the location of the individuals. These sounds are also very convincingly mixed in to give the impression they are moving around in the distance. Authorities have currently ceased any and all investigation into this matter, as it is now officially considered to be a cold case with too many uncertainties and no solid evidence. One other file was received along with the MP3. A .pdf that was at first believed to be corrupted, until an analysis showed it was an encrypted image that needed to be rearranged somehow. Only just over 65% of it was corrupt beyond recovery. After putting together what was salvageable, the result was a bizarrely fragmented image containing what is believed to be the narrator himself, along with several of his personal details. Both are largely obscured due to the corrupt sections that after assembly, that clearly spell the words, "I'm listening," presented in all caps with a pixelated mixture of crimson, black, blue, and red. Maximum edge factor. What can be made of the individual's details includes the majority of his name, along with 11 stray letters of various details such as address, date of birth, and occupation. The other noteworthy detail of these stray letters is that they spell the words "stop killing," and are also placed in the right order, littered throughout the overlaying sentence. This occurrence, however, managed to corrupt the image and was unsuccessful in recovering those specific areas. The individual appears to be of average height and build, standing straight with long blonde hair just past shoulder length. His face cannot be seen due to that part of the image being corrupted. He is wearing what looks like nothing more than a simple set of jeans and a midnight blue shirt beneath a black hooded top, carrying what is questionably a set of firearms. Wow, maximum edge factor, consisting of what can be recognized as an IMI Desert Eagle on the right hip, a Glock 17S on the left, and both a Remington 870 pump-action shotgun and Heckler & Koch XM8 assault rifle on his back. This is the day that I die. Each firearm has a strange visual effect of it being covered in some kind of dense, swirling fog. So he's Reaper. The fog itself is a mixture of gray, black, purple, and teal, and is wrapped lightly around the shape of the firearms. Strangely, though, no holsters are present for this equipment. Also, are two other identified items attached to the outer side of both his legs. Whether these are weapons or not is uncertain, as there is too much of the image obscured to tell. Very little else can be said about this image, other than what can be made out as a background behind him. It suggests scenery that was either visually altered in several ways, resulting in a series of twisted and disturbing shapes that are colored with a blur of black, mauve, and various shades of blue that share no similarity to any scenery currently known in the world. Certain factors such as the date of upload, details of any location allegedly involved, as well as both the name and other contents will not be included to prevent investigation from any further outside source. The recording begins with a sound that resembles an audio jack being plugged into an unstable or defective socket of some kind, before switching to an ambience of what has a resemblance to both howling and cries of pain that, upon first impressions, have been tweaked with audio software and is at a low volume. After approximately 3 seconds, there is the voice of a male with a British accent, estimated to be mid to late 20s. Okay, hold on. My name is Chris Lawrence, and I have a warning for anyone who is now hearing this. Whether you like horror or not, you'd best hear this. You need to know, and if you were involved with what has now caused more damage than you could imagine, that means fanfics, artwork, and constant attention to something that was never meant to be messed around with. You have a lot to answer for. You just love playing around with these concepts, like all other popular things turned into memes that you feel you can take in order to help it grow for your own sick amusement. No. Point in going there until you know why I'm here and what I'm talking about. I never imagined doing something like, I don't know, a podcast or whatever you call this thing. I don't want anything other than some of your time, if that's okay with you. The pieces of the picture I'm here to tell you about are pretty big within themselves, but hopefully you'll see that it's all bad. In the end, though, I just want you to listen more than anything. This pain persists, I can't resist. I'd best get to the point, right? Before I confuse you any further. You could say this all began when I was checking some stuff on YouTube one night. I was watching some top 10 video on creepy moments in games. After seeing this one game in particular, I got a bit curious. Well, I say curious, but I'm pretty sure at this point I was actually controlled on some level. I'm sure that's how it works. I guess you could say I have my own reasons for regretting the day I heard the name Sonic.exe, or anything else about it for that matter. Even then, I don't actually think regret would be my word of choice. So if anyone just stopped listening, fine. Maybe it's nice to stay ignorant. That is, until they might come across my kind of problems. But to anyone who's still here, you want to hear what I have to say? If you really want to know about this, and if you'll just understand, or even believe that I'm trying to stop what follows in this thing's wake for real, and you will stay the hell away from it. There's a lot to wrap your head around. I don't even know where to begin. I guess carrying on about how I first exposed myself, or got exposed, would be a good start. So, I mentioned a list of creepy stuff in games, and this had me interested. I heard a couple of things about what it was, and some research followed. Research usually leads to something with a download link. But like I said, this was more than just fascination. It was being compelled without knowing it. And the more I think of it, the more I'm certain I was being called to since I first saw him. All that aside for a second, I succeeded in getting the game and went through it. The version I got was just a replication of the original though. Extra stuff in it. But most importantly, it wasn't the actual thing. Now, if by chance you haven't seen what this thing is, it's basically the first Sonic game. It was done by Wes Craven on an especially bad day. I gotta say, as freaky as it must be for most people that I don't have a stomach for horror, and maybe even a few that do, it couldn't go unexplored forever. Violence is everywhere. You look. And all that, am I right? Seeing the characters after they were caught is what I remember most clearly. That, and the face at the end. But there were a couple of details that were a little off from what I saw in any vid. It's easy to say there was something about the eyes, but in this case, there was really something about the eyes. The pupils, they were darker than I saw beforehand, and that wasn't my monitor. But the really weird part was when I must have looked away for about a second, then back again. This time they were really bright, and it made his eyes look bigger. Oh yeah, there was the one other thing to mention. No feeling of fear. Only interest. I obviously thought nothing of it back then, but now that I've had time to look back on all those points where I should have been afraid, it's amazing how much of an effect it has, and how much attention you don't pay. I felt as if I had to find anything else I could about it. I wanted to find the original version, didn't even know why. I do now, of course, but at the time, like I said, totally oblivious. But there was something in that moment that definitely signified things really starting. Shortly after all that, Steam told me someone named Gamma had added me as a friend. Curiosity got me, of course. I opened the chat to say hi, but without anything saying, they were typing. They said hi first, and this person knew my name. I did feel a bit weirded out by that. I mean, it could have just been someone I already knew, who found me on here, but I just played through that game, and I already had far-fetched ideas going through my head. I asked them how they knew me, and their response was a little strange at the least. At the most, it was just detached and insane. This person started going on about how I'd caught his attention, and they wanted to take me back to the beginning. It stopped soon after that, but I had the life scared after me by laughter coming through my headphones. It was loud. Made me smack them off on my head. And yeah, it was the same laughter I heard in the game. I checked to see if it was still up. Nothing was there. Then something came up in the chat that caught my eye again. The words, "Gamma is now deceased." Yep, you did just hear that from me. It might be that I haven't paid much attention, but I'm pretty sure Steam doesn't show that one. It gets better though. It switched to "Gamma is now mine." A link came up that just said, "The beginning." I didn't click on it, but my PC just started downloading the game anyway. It wouldn't cancel. Kind of makes me wonder what the point of the link was, if it just did that. Anyway, it was done in a few seconds, and got put on the desktop in even less time. And then, except for the chat window and a brand new desktop icon, nothing. I would have believed this is someone who's good with coding and able to play a not-so-funny joke on me. But after everything else, you know what I was thinking. And you're probably thinking it too. Well, we both got proven right pretty quickly. The screen went dead, and I heard something like scratching. Then slice marks started etching themselves into the screen. Not a vid or anything. I mean, actual scratches. My monitor was being ripped up in front of me. The screen was getting twisted up where it was cut. It was buckling and curling outwards, and underneath there was something that looked like living tissue. There were words appearing, but I also heard something over the sound of the screen being destroyed, and it was coming from my headphones. Like a genius, I grabbed them to listen in. It was like several screams at once, only they were really distorted, quiet at first, but clearly getting louder. As more of it appeared, it was like I was hearing stuff from somewhere really nasty. Heard that laughter again, a lot louder than before, pretty much deafening actually, only this time it didn't come from the PC. It was more like something behind me, and then complete silence. When it stopped, the words were in all caps saying, "I'm listening." My brain had a hard time with all of it at first. I dropped the headphones and checked outside the door, only to see nothing there. Not only that, but when I looked back at my monitor, nothing. No scratches. Just a blank screen. Now, this is what got me thinking about the whole control thing to begin with. And I still wouldn't know if it was pointed out to me. I doubted my own sanity, but only for a few moments. After that, I didn't have any problem with going near the PC, even after what I just witnessed. There was no fear towards it, but no curiosity this time. Didn't seem important back then, of course. But I should probably mention it now. Anyway, the PC was still running, and the monitor was just fine. First thing I did was check Steam. No one named Gamma, or anything saying I ever met them. Except for the new game I had, everything looked normal again. I do remember it having a new icon, though. Just those eyes with the blood trickling down underneath. Quite sharp resolution, too. Hyper-realistic. I kept thinking on and off that I just imagined all of it. And no one else in the house was kicking my door off its hinges because of the noise. But believe me, it felt so real. In the end, I was still unsure. But then I stopped thinking about that because a more very strange feeling started creeping up on me. It was like I wanted to sleep, but not because I was tired. It was more a sense that of just not wanting to be awake anymore. No kind of depression or anything. But I just didn't feel like me. I just fell asleep and like it didn't happen. Shouldn't have. I was shown the events of the game again, and it was almost exactly the same. One thing changed. The look. There was almost nothing cartoony about it. Everything looked so grim and real. Imagine someone putting all these characters in places through Photoshop or something, then making them just a bit off from a human's height. Seeing them from that perspective for the first time, you've seen them in games, but in the flesh as it were. The eyes were still almost as big, though so you might have found it a bit creepy. Some probably wouldn't even care because it's Sonic, but I cared. And I wanted it to stop, but I couldn't on account of being locked in a room, being made to watch through a window. I never did get shown what he did to those poor guys. I only heard the screams and then static. I should point out they weren't the screams you get in the game. They were fitting for each character. What I did get after all of it, though, was that freak busting the window after he was done, growling something about suffering being a part of who I am. This pain persists, I can't resist, if that's what it takes to be infinite! Sorry, I had to break character there. It was too much. Can't remember the exact words. Although the words I do remember was him yelling at me to wake up. I did, just that in one hell of a hurry. Didn't even get much sleep. As I was sitting on the edge of my bed, I could have sworn I was still dreaming when I saw that was what was on my monitor. But I wasn't, unfortunately. It looked like a video clip of the freak, but he looked as real as he was in the dream. His eyes were completely fixed on me. Also, seeing as you know who I'm talking about, let's go with a pet name like Freakazoid. I'll come up with something demeaning for him later. You don't really have a clue who or what he is, but you know what he looks like. And you may think you know what he does, but you don't. You really don't. It was a dark background, so I could barely see anything other than him. But I could just about make out something like a crimson sky, and there was some kind of shapes dancing and twisting around in the distance, like there was something that was alive. After a few seconds, I realized that this wasn't a video clip. No loop. Freakazoid was actually staring at me with a toned-down smile on his face. That feeling hit me again, only this time was more like a needing to do just one more thing before you go to sleep. You know, like 5 more minutes on a game or one more vid to watch. I I actually felt I needed to get him. No trace of common sense at all. The desktop came up by itself, but the background was still the same thing, until we started looking at the game. The screen went a bit strange after that, giving a split second of red static here or there. The mouse cursor flew about all over the screen as well, and it stopped, with the cursor being right next to the icon. My hand just went to the headphones, and the keyboard and mouse. I clicked on it. It was just like before, without the updated look. The music, scenery, murders, and the words, the characters, and the way they got locked out when they died. There was just one small detail you might want to know about. My hands were stuck to the keyboard and mouse, and no, I don't mean I needed to keep my hands on them. I mean I tried to remove them, and it was like everything was stuck to the desk, except I was able to slide the mouse around. I played through to the end, seeing the same ending. 3 rounds of static followed by that laughing. Then there was another round of static. The picture stayed the same, but now it said, "What are you?" Yet another round of static, and... Right, okay. I don't know if this is even going to work. And don't ask me how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. Audio undergoes a second of strange interference before cutting to approximately half a second of static. The transition is followed by what can be heard as wind howling, as if the recording was made in an outside environment. This consistently remains for the rest of the segment. 4 seconds in, there was a voice of a male with a slightly diluted American accent. The male's voice would appear to be a heavily modified voiceover, including a substantially low tone from a pitch shifter. However, there was no sign of tampering of any kind throughout, except for the beginning and the end of this segment, visible or otherwise. Asterisk. First visible sign of tampering throughout the entire recording at this point, implying a crude yet unknown transition from the recording to the current segment. Indications show that the segment was placed into the recording during the process itself, without the aid of another audio device. Having fun? I hope so. I hope you enjoyed watching all those sealed fates, and you knew they were sealed. You knew it was going to happen to them, and yet you just watched. Although you did more than just watch, didn't you? You took control of them, led them to me, gave them up. You were responsible for their deaths as I am, Chris. There's something about you, something I can see. I wish to take a closer look at you. Let's talk in private, shall we? Background effects are added, and this is what appears to be a modified sound clip of screaming in a room that carries an echo. This loops throughout the rest of the segment. Asterisk. Several more screams are introduced in the background, all of which have been determined to be a mixture of clips that have been traced to several sound archives, TV shows, videos from such as YouTube and video games. Asterisk. A high-powered device of some kind is heard charging up. This particular effect has a strong tremolo effect mixed in, but does not share any kind of resemblance to any known device or form of media. The audio cuts back with the same transition described at the beginning of this current segment. Okay, what you hopefully just heard, that was his voice. What he said to me. I know. It doesn't really add up that I have that to show you. But I did just show you, I hope. What happened after was... well, all I really remember is that the screen flashing and hurting my eyes. But he was moving with every second of it. The last thing I remember was a shot of his whole body, standing straight with his arms stretched out in front. He had the same look on his face before. Then everything, and I mean my actual vision, went completely red, then to black. The next thing I knew, I woke up. Well, let's say, somewhere else. I can't tell you, because I don't know. Quite a few things have happened since then, my own adventures through this. But I've already dribbled on for what must be about a half hour now. Besides, there's another important part I need you to hear. I don't know how long has passed since I first got into whatever this is, but the things I've seen, I don't know what this place is. If it's just a dream, or if I'm hallucinating, and in reality I'm strapped down to a bed in a mental hospital or something. Or indeed, if this is some kind of place beyond your imagination. Weird nightmares. I know it sounds completely insane, what I'm saying, but I don't know what else to say. I would try explaining how things work, and the sights you get here, but I don't think I have the words to describe that. I can tell you something I have seen, though. Bodies. A lot of brutality and murder. There's been characters either from the games, or I'm guessing made by any of you, since I don't recognize any of them. They get chased down before they just disappear, until he's done with them. And then, there's the human victims he chooses. Do you understand that I'm talking about real people here? These people went through the same thing as me, only they weren't so lucky. They didn't have what I've got. They weren't saved, given the chance to even survive, much less fight back. And it's your fault. Yes, you! You keep conjuring up these little pieces of fiction, artwork, and further proof of his existence. It's because of you that a place like this exists. All because all of those characters that you keep creating, they get about 5 minutes of life in this hellhole before their remains, as well as the people he chose to drag in here, get left for me and others to find. And you continue to just bury us in this. And if you say, but I played it and nothing happened, then he found you lacking, not worth his attention. But why do you have to give him the reign of terror he has? Why can't you draw him getting his face kicked in for a change? Why don't you just give us a break already? You have to stop indulging this thing's power. Believe me, once again, I know it's completely insane what I'm saying, and the little evidence I have of words and apparent recording, and I'm not even sure you're going to hear, isn't much to go on. I should imagine you'd even question how I got that. Well, I just have it. That's all I've got for you. But if you listen to this point, there must be some part of you that's convinced. Whatever all this started off as, it must have grown. It's evolved, and it's refined itself. Even though you wouldn't know from looking at this place, either that, or it's always been here. It just needed something to give it a shape. I don't know. Something I am sure of, though, is also the reason I'm doing this. And it's that I'm here to tell you, you have to stop feeding him. If not for our sake, and for the sake of anyone else here, then for your own. I can't say what he looks for when he goes after someone. He's very picky, leaving so many alone. And there will always be those few people that spark his interest. If you believe me, then I'll make you a deal. If you leave this thing alone, then we'll fight this in peace and stop it from spreading. He can't be killed, but he can be subdued. If you don't believe me, and you're still listening, just think about it. That's all I ask. I'm not asking for you to spread the word or stop making any of these characters. And I'm not saying destroy what there is to already see. You can't destroy it. There will always be a copy of this stuff somewhere in the world. And even then, I doubt he'd let this place end in such a way. After being here for as long as I have, I feel that even these characters you've given life to in some way or another have rights to exist. And you people don't deserve to die. Would you agree? Just stop giving this creature the power it keeps using on us. Leave this one alone. He's extremely dangerous and just might choose you next. I'm literally the only living human being I've come across here. So what the hell would your chances be? The only reason I've survived here is because something wanted us here. Because we're probably just as much of a freak as he is in some ways. I know what I ask is a lot. Maybe it's even impossible. It's a fact there's a part of you that's hardwired to respond to violence. You may take offense to that, but it's the truth. Think about it. So many of you see what all these forms of media have to give you. You play games to feel strong. You watch films to escape from yourself. And when you see the news, you say, oh my, how tragic. Yet you keep watching. Just as long as it isn't happening to you. That's not some sick psycho you've been keeping locked up. It's just human nature. Ever since the start. God, this is so fucking edgy, you guys. I think the reason I survived might be because I tried to stop the horror. Rather than watching from behind a monitor or TV, I've survived and I'm still fighting back, even though this is a dark, brutal place where no one was meant to live. But there is some life here. There are a lot of enemies, but there are also allies. Make whatever judgment you see fit about what I've told you. It's not like it should matter to me anymore. But if this is some kind of home for Sonic.exe, and we are the Anti-Sonic.dll. And we will continue being a thorn in that fucker's side until our last breath. You have been warned so that if you're still stupid enough to put yourself in this much danger, it's at your own risk. The following segment is mostly inaudible due to the unexpected interference mixed with a distorted screen that resides for approximately 4 seconds. The sound clip that has been cut up and rearranged. What follows is patches of static that continue until the end of the recording. One of 2 other notable points is the sudden presence of 2 distinctly different voices. This is the most likely explanation for the transition between tenses I and we. The second voice is that of a male with an American accent. The second point is that it appears to be a distorted cries making their way from the distance to what is assumed to be the narrator's location, as well as the low presence of a deep-toned male's laughter. The voice has a resemblance to that of the individual heard in an earlier segment. Asterisk. Second visible sign of tampering throughout the entire recording indicates what has been determined as a powerful type of jamming signal, theoretically designed to overwhelm the output of any electrical device. The result seems to be that it renders the device inoperable. The evidence suggests that there is a delay between the signal's impact and its effect. All known jamming tech available does not possess the specific properties of this signal. Narrator. Found. Unknown. Surprised. It. Narrator. Not my fault. Dragged it. Unknown. Agree. Here. Narrator. We have other choice. Hope. To know. Said we fight. Alone. In peace. Unknown. Amen. Here. The static continues with what can be heard as several as of yet unidentified creatures, followed by what is to be believed to be gunfire from at least 5 different sources, accompanied by shouting from the narrator along with 3 extra voices. The first 2 are American accents belonging to both a female and a male. The third is that of another British male. There is also sounds implying further use of tools that cause projectiles or some kind of lethal force with high impact. Whether these tools are weapons cannot be determined, although it is likely. All mentioned factors take place over approximately the last 8 seconds. Unknown. Now. Narrator. I'm trying. He or us. Unknown number 3. Look out! Narrator. Oh, fuck. A struggle takes place between the narrator and what is believed to be the one of the apparent creatures from which the rise originated from. The gunfire continues, almost remaining consistent throughout. The recording ends with the sound in the opening description, but only it is now more like the jack being removed. Based on the loose assumption is that this is not a mere hoax. It is unknown whether or not the persons responsible for these files' upload survived the incident. File that has been all but dismissed as a hoax due to the lack of concrete evidence, including such elements as the sound clips found in already existing forms of media. Also noted is that there is or never has been anyone by the name of Chris Lawrence or any individual having his personal details filed or under missing persons. Neither has there been anyone having taken up residence or even connected to anywhere near the area of alleged disappearance. To prove this further, locals in the area connected to the claim have never heard of such a person. The end. Well, admittedly, that was probably like the most well-written of these .exe based fanfics, not gonna lie. That was actually a pretty decent read. That's kind of why I was trying to take it a little bit seriously. There were some parts where it was like, oh my god, maximum edge factor! But like, it didn't like try too hard. So yeah, that was pretty cool. And with that, guys, I will see you all later. Till next time, this is Darkness Individual. A fond farewell.